When the pressure was on, maybe you didn't say anything wrong, you just stopped saying anything at all. And for someone on your team, that might have just been the loudest thing you might have ever communicated. So let me start today by asking you a question. When you're under pressure, the kind where everything is coming at once and you're holding more than anyone around you knows, what's your natural instinct to do? Some people get louder. Some people get sharper. Some people call a meeting and make a plan and put it all on a whiteboard and feel better for having done so. And some people, they just go quiet. They focus internally and process the chaos in a way that looks, from the outside, frankly, a little like absence, as if you're not quite present. And if you're that second kind of person, this week is for you. Because what you maybe aren't thinking about is that your quiet has a volume all of its own, and depending on who's listening, it can be utterly deafening. Welcome to Unshakable Her, helping ambitious women who are constantly second-guessing themselves to build the daily habits that compound into unshakable confidence. I'm Caroline Esterson, and I'm in your corner. And today it's Monday, which means I'm telling a story. Because the best way to see your own situation clearly is to listen to someone else live it first. Then we'll crack open the unspoken rulebook of how power, promotion and visibility really move, so that you can stop second guessing and start moving away from imposter syndrome and towards the influence you deserve. Grab your coffee. Let's go. Right, so 3 promises for you today. Here's what it's going to do for you. 1, you're going to meet Nina. And Nina is going to make you think very carefully about the last time you went quiet and what the people around you made of it. 2, you're going to understand why the same silence means completely different things to different people, and why not knowing that is costing you relationships that you can't afford to lose. And 3, you're going to get a wake-up call that Nina got, and I hope it's going to really help you. Are you ready? Let's go. Nina's 41. She leads a commercial team of 9. She's warm, energetic, the person who remembers your birthday and your dog's name and the thing you mentioned once in a meeting 6 months ago that you didn't think anyone noticed. She fills every room she walks into with her warmth and exuberance. Her team doesn't just like her, they orbit her. And then Q3 happened. I'm not going to go into the details of what Q3 brought. Every leader listening has their own version of it. It was the kind of quarter where everything lands at once, where the diary becomes a thing of fiction, where you're making decisions instantly at 9 p.m. that you would normally take 3 days to deliberate. Nina went into her head. She went quiet and her energy disappeared. The regular check-ins that she used to love with her team got shorter. The replies got more transactional. The woman who'd always had time for everyone suddenly didn't have time for anybody. She was distracted. She thought that she was managing, and she thought that her team understood. One of her direct reports is called Aisha. Aisha is the kind of person you want on every team. She's precise, rigorous, analytical in a way that makes complex things simple for you. She's been with Nina for 3 years. She trusts Nina. Well, past tense really, she trusted Nina until recently, in a way that doesn't come easily to Aisha and that Nina has spent 3 years earning. And then Nina went quiet. For someone like Aisha, someone who runs on consistency and evidence and whose brain is always building a case from the available data, Nina's silence was not noise that she could filter out. It was data. It landed as specific, unambiguous, deeply uncomfortable information. Nina had stopped engaging with her work. She'd stopped responding to her ideas. Actually, Nina had just stopped. And this is the word Aisha used when she finally said it out loud. She'd stopped noticing her. Now, Aisha didn't say any of this to Nina. She just got quieter too. She stopped volunteering, stopped bringing those early stage ideas she used to bring. She continued doing a great job, but nothing more. And Nina, warm, intuitive, emotionally intelligent Nina, who notices everything, just didn't notice this time. Until John noticed instead. Now, John is Nina's peer. They've worked together for 4 years. He's the kind of colleague who watches everything and says almost nothing until he can't stay quiet any longer. You know the ones? On one Thursday morning, he appeared in Nina's office, closed the door, sat down and said, "I need to tell you something and I need you to listen. Aisha thinks you've lost confidence in her. She's not said that to me directly, but I've watched her for 6 weeks and I'm telling you, she's getting ready to leave." Nina stared at him. "She thinks I've lost confidence in her?" "Yeah, she thinks you've written her off and she's trying to decide whether to wait and find out or just leave." Nina drove home that evening thinking about every interaction she'd had with Aisha in the last 6 weeks. Every short reply, every rescheduled one-to-one, every meeting where she'd been physically present and mentally somewhere else entirely. She'd not been dismissing Aisha. She'd been drowning. She'd been doing what she always did under pressure, going inside, going quiet and managing alone. It hadn't occurred to her for a single moment that Aisha was reading it as a verdict. But Aisha hadn't read it as stress. She had read it as evidence, and evidence, once it accumulates, is very hard to argue with. That's the thing about silence. It doesn't arrive neutral. It arrives in the language whoever is receiving it. And Nina had never once considered that Aisha's language and her own were not the same. Jack Canfield explains this really well. He says that no communication is neutral. You're either paying into the emotional bank account of others or taking debits from it. And if you take the message from last week when we said every time you're in earshot or eye shot, you're on stage, then this takes that one step further. Every time you're in someone's range, you're communicating, even if you don't open your mouth. What do you want them to receive from you? The unspoken rule book. Know the rules, own the game. So the unspoken rulebook entry for this week is that your communication style is not the default. It's just yours. And the gap between your intention and someone else's interpretation is where relationships quietly break. And here's why this rule is invisible. Because when we communicate, when we go quiet, when we go loud, when we check in, when we pull back even, we almost always do it in a way that makes sense to us. We assume that what we mean is what lands. We assume that the person receiving our silence, our energy, our brevity, or our warmth is decoding it in the way that we encoded it. But they're not. They're decoding it through their own lens, their own needs, their own history of what silence has meant when they've encountered it before. Nina's quiet meant, "I'm overwhelmed, give me space, but I am still here." Yet Aisha heard, "Something's wrong, and it's probably me." The same silence and a completely different message. And no one said a word. So let me ask you, when did you last check what your default communication style is actually communicating to the people around you? Not what you meant, but what landed. We're often so focused on output that we rarely check in with input. Yet this is the critical final stage of communication. It's the bit that ensures the message sent equals message given. And of course, if it hasn't, then it's an opportunity for you to put it right immediately without second guessing or confusion creeping in. Remember, output and input are rarely always the same. And the gap between them is where the Aishas of the world quietly start planning their exit. So let's summarise. I said at the start you'd meet Nina and think about your own equivalent of quiet. Did that land for you? Because if you are the kind of person who goes internal under pressure, who manages by retreating rather than broadcasting, there's an Aisha somewhere in your world right now who's building a case from your silence, and they probably haven't told you. I said you'd understand why the same silence means different things to different people. Monday's just the story. Wednesday is your science. But for now, remember this. Your intention and their interpretation are two entirely separate things, and only one of them is the one that matters. Always check in with the person that the message you've sent is the one that they've received. And I said you'd get the wake-up call Nina got, but a little bit gentler. Here it is. You don't need a John to appear in your office and close the door. You just need to ask one question of the person you think might have gone quiet. It doesn't need to be a big conversation. Just, how are you finding things at the moment? And then this is the move. Actually listen to the answer. So Wednesday, we go into the science of why we communicate the way that we do, why different people need completely different things from the same interaction, and why understanding that is not soft skills, it is leadership strategy. See you there. That's it for today. But before you go, if a woman came to mind while you were listening, maybe the one who's stuck, the one circling a promotion, the one you know is quietly wondering if it's just her, send her this episode, because she gets to feel less alone and you get to be the woman who refused to let her stay stuck, who reached back instead of scrolling on. Be in her corner like I'm in yours. See you Wednesday.